Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Looks like you should be able to hear me. My name is Kristen Williams. I'm the Dealer Development Manager here at Dealer Pro Training. And today I have with me Bill Horgan, one of our Directors of Training, again on the call this week. One of the things we wanted to provide, this is going to be the last in our series. This is, believe it or not, our 9th week. We've been at this for over 2 months. It may feel like it has been that long. Maybe it feels longer, but it's certainly hard to believe that we've been transitioning through this pandemic and the COVID-19 challenges. But we're thrilled to have been able to do it with you guys. We are going to continue these webinars in some shape or form. We don't know what that will be yet. We've had a great response to them, and we are probably going to expand on that, but we're not going to be continuing them weekly. So these are archived as usual on our YouTube channel at dealerprotraining.com. You can find them there. And then this week we opened up the chat box. So if you have any questions that you've had throughout this process, I know we've still got new folks on this particular call, but some of you have been with us for many weeks. Go ahead and type it in the chat box and we'll do our best to get to it at the very end of today's webinar. And if we run out of time, then we'll go ahead and follow up via email with you. All right, so we kind of took the best ideas of the last 9 weeks. What was the content that people really liked and responded to, and that are viewing online that we've noticed as well. So we've pulled together some of the things that we think are still helpful and most important as we're all in a different state of affairs. So this is the week of Total Fixed Ops Resource Guide to drive more traffic and sales post-COVID-19. All right, so one thing we can be certain of right now is a certain level of uncertainty, and that is industry-wide. If you talk to any of the experts, quote unquote, out there, whether it's articles in automotive news, leaders for different vendor companies, NADA, and I did some got some information from Cox Automotive this week. They all say the same thing, that there's a certain level of uncertainty. We can make predictions, we can share percentages and studies and statistics about what customers are doing, what our sales are going to be like, and we just don't know. So we're doing our best here to be as helpful as we can, and I think we have some great material to help guide you in the right direction. But I will say that we can be certain of one thing, and that is that customers really do want a different level of service from us. And now's the opportunity to build on that, or begin it if you haven't already, to truly deliver the ways that they want you to accommodate their needs, whether that's a no contact experience, whether that's a free pickup and delivery, or some form of pickup and delivery. And we'll talk a little bit more about that today. So how do we manage this level of uncertainty? Well, there's 3 things that I think you need to remind yourself of. One of those is, we talked about this in the first couple weeks of these webinars, and that is focus on what you can control in your store and in your service and parts operation. So what are the things that you can control? Well, now we've got a lot more information about how to adapt to the social distancing guidelines. So take that information, make sure you're doing it to the best of your ability, and making sure that your customers feel safe and well taken care of when they're interacting with you. Lead your team as things continue to change and develop by over communicating. And I can't stress that enough. Your employees really do still need more information as things may change. Train them, help them, give them the word tracks to use when a customer comes in and has concerns about their safety, or again, how to get their car back. Make sure you're spending that time to coach them and train them on those new procedures and policies. And I would guess that you've been very busy focusing on the procedures and the tasks at hand, and even the physical setup, and maybe not spending that one-on-one time with your employees to communicate to them the importance of the changes that you're making, and how to make sure your customers are hearing what you're trying to get across. And then consider what your customers want right now, and adapt. You can choose to continue doing the same thing, but study after study, which I'm going to share with you, tells us that your customers are ready. They are ready for you to step up your digital retailing, your emailing, your texting, your video, and all those good things. These were some interesting statistics we shared, and I thought they were worth pointing out again. This was recently done, and they asked, what percentage of customers say that they are staying put? We don't know the reason why they're staying put. It could be that they do have the virus. Maybe they're scared. Maybe it's a budgetary issue. But in the hotspot states versus the less effective states, you see a little bit of a difference. 30% of customers say that they're staying put and they're not making consumer purchases. And again, I'm going to say the dealers that we have talked to, that seems to be a good number as a guide on average out there, that people are seeing a drop in their service traffic. And then in states like Mississippi and North Carolina, 20% of customers say that they're staying put. And this data was from Facebook, and I would imagine you can go out there and seek it on your own for your particular state. And luxury lines are taking a harder hit than domestics. 29% of customers said that they'll delay getting service for their vehicle unless it's an emergency. That's really important. And so here at Dealer Pro, we are already back on the road. We've got our trainers in stores this week. We're getting all of our stores back online and ready to head out and visit. And in our sort of toolbox that we're sharing with them is we're going to go out and capture part of that 29% that are not being proactive about their vehicle maintenance. How are we going to do that? Now, I'm sharing this study with you. So this is another recent, very recent study by Cox Automotive. So they asked customers, okay, we know that a large percentage of you are saying that you're likely to stay put unless you've got emergency services that are needed. But what's going to get you into the service department? And so they found that 70% of those consumers said that they would come in if they were confident that their vehicle was being sanitized and disinfected. And we have a little bit of a theory here at Dealer Pro, and that is, it's not that you're not providing the service. Many dealers have expressed to us, oh yeah, we provide disinfectant. I had a dealer last week, a Chevy dealer, tell me that, oh, we're doing that, but nobody's interested in it. Nobody really cares about the disinfecting and sanitizing. And we would disagree. Where the gap is in the communication. Are you letting them know? How are you letting them know? This is another area where you have to over communicate with your customers. Make sure that your advisors, your folks answering the phone, your marketing department, your website, your emails, your texting, all are sharing. Again, we've hammered this and we're going to continue to hammer away at it. This statistic tells us that it's extremely important to customers. 43% of consumers said that they were more likely to come in for service if there was at-home pickup and delivery. Same number, 43% said if curbside drop-off and pickup was offered, they would be likely to come in for service. So you have some choices there. It doesn't have to be home pickup and delivery, which we know can be quite costly and drive up your expenses and your overheads. So consider a curbside drop-off or valet. And I did talk to a dealer last week out in Portland that said, well, through another dealer that said their state, I'm sorry, not Portland, Washington, their state was requiring customers to give their name, their email, and their phone number when they entered a business. So at the dealership on the sales side, they were thrilled because they were now capturing customer data that before was a little bit more difficult, or maybe they forgot to follow the process and get an accurate email and phone number. And so they have someone stationed on the lot with a tablet capturing folks' contact information in order to have a conversation about a vehicle. And so same thing in service. You could park somebody outside for curbside drop off and pickup. 180% increase, this is an increase over previous surveys, said that they had a desire to pay online. So that was pre-COVID numbers in this study. 180% increase in those that have a desire to pay online, and that is huge. So now is the opportunity to train your customers. If you've been able to implement some of these new processes and new ways of doing business, you've got that window of opportunity where you're not having to market it as heavily and push it. It's proving its worth because they're in a position to want it. All right, I wanted to remind you of this information. So many of you have taken that first step. You have your website updated. You've sent out something to your customers to let them know what safety protocols you're following, your hours, things like that. But have you refreshed it? Have you updated it? What is different? Do we need to pull back maybe? I've been on some websites, so they've still got a very long letter listing every single process they're doing. Maybe that needs to look a little bit different. Many folks are starting to make it permanent branding within their website. Some are even incorporating into their logo as far as pickup and delivery or the cleanliness factor. These were some tips that we shared with you about laminated tags that you can utilize in your customer reception area. Again, more information, constantly letting them know about that you're keeping them safe. Okay, you can offer free sanitizing for vehicles with for folks with no purchase, for example, hospital workers and first responders. And then being a leader in your community, giving out things like free hand sanitizer, um, as well as giving out free sanitizing to hospital workers. Okay, some good statistics. We've started sharing these with our dealers, and I think that it's really important for you to consider how effective email versus texting is for your customers. They want texting. Anytime you talk about the service drive, you also see a lot of information on how to reach millennials. It's a really important segment of the market. It continues to be. People continue to talk about it, but it really applies to a larger percentage of your customer base than just the millennials. When you look at email, 1 in 5 emails are opened by customers. And when a link is included in an email, 2% of customers open that email and click on the link. That's 2 out of 100 versus texts. 90% of texts are read within 3 minutes. And think about that. The difficulty and the headache that the phones present to your advisors on the drive when they've got technicians to talk to, they've got customers waiting in the drive, and then they've got the phones ringing if you don't have a dedicated BDC. Texting can eliminate some of that phone contact. It really is such a tremendous tool. Many of you probably already have this ability within your CRM. You've got some sort of software there. Now's the time to use the full functionality of your investments. 100% of texts virtually are read in 24 hours, and 19% of links within a text message are clicked on versus 2% in emails. These are huge statistics. They really are. Customers opt in to receive texts from the service department more often than they do for the sales department. Your customers want information. They want updates. Even if it's a non-update, they want that update. So more ways to communicate with your customers you have to consider and take a look. And if you're a service manager on this call today and you haven't already had a meeting with the folks that do your marketing, or at least get with your GM or your dealer, find out who that is. It might be an offsite company. Find out what your service department looks like on your website, how it's being treated. What else can we do to increase our digital presence? Can you help me get out some videos via text to some of our customers? They've got a wealth of information that they're applying it to sales and F&I. So be the squeaky wheel and go out there and get the assistance that you need to drive more traffic and sales in your service department. So look at your home page, look at your service page, look at the About Us page. Communicate anywhere and everywhere you can about your service specials, about your protocols, your safety protocols, about your pickup and delivery, about your team. People love to see photos and videos of people. So talk about your team. Most of you have those Meet the Staff pages. That's an area where you can maybe expand a little bit there on those pages as well. Make it easy for your customers to schedule and get the info that they need. Another area to talk about communicating with your customers, getting them the information that they need, is looking at your website traffic and what your Google My Business page looks like. Again, you as the service manager, be that leader, be the driver that goes to marketing and goes to your dealers and says, hey, we need to take a look at our Google Business page. I want to have service have a present on that. You can include coupons down here. You can update with certain hours that you have. Maybe you've got high risk population hours when they can come in at a certain time during the day. All of that can be updated on your Google My Business page, but you're probably going to have to coordinate that with another department within your dealership and find out either how to do it, and they can help you, or have them get it done. But make sure service and parts have a presence. 32% increase since the coronavirus in automotive search traffic. So the good news is people are out there, they're searching, they're buying cars. 25% of Google automotive searches are for service. So for every 1 in 4, they're searching for service, repair, parts, and maintenance. 50% of the clicks on the Google My Business box, that's this box right here, half of the folks that go to that, and think about how many times you do a search and you do go to this, at least I know I do. I can hit their website. I can usually click the link to call immediately, especially if it's a restaurant and I want to order out. And so 50% of searches click on that box. So again, free billboards, free advertising for what you want to get across. I'm sharing this video again. We've shared it with some of our dealers. They've really liked it. It's a great sample video for you to model after and go out there and make your own. So this is a dealer down in Florida. They've got a disinfecting process that they're sharing with their customers on YouTube. You know, it's not enough anymore to tell your customers. Now you have to sell your customers through video. So as I said over here, if you've told your customers, now show your customers. So much more exciting, more engaging.
In this uncertain time, we are standing strong and doing everything we can to protect the health of our community. As you can see, we disinfect every vehicle with hospital-grade cleaner before and after we service it. We are strictly following the guidance from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention to ensure a safe and healthful working environment. You can trust us to keep you and your loved ones safe.
Nope, didn't mean to cut that short. Okay. I think we got the gist of it though. So great video. It's really very easy. In fact, personally, I've been learning how to use iMovie on my phone. It's a great tool. You should try it. Took me about 10 minutes to put together a video of several photos and videos I had on my phone. And so dig into that, learn more about it. There's so many easy ways to get this done. It seems overwhelming when we don't kind of dig in and learn it, but it's really not. You can knock out a video like that in a matter of minutes. All right. Another Cox Automotive study, and this was done prior to coronavirus, and the number one desire of service customers, it wasn't convenience, it wasn't a better price, it wasn't fixed rate first time, it was pickup and delivery. And that was pre-coronavirus, and they've been preaching that for several years now. And so again, we want to ask you to consider that, think outside the box. What are ways that you can deliver this kind of service to your customers? It gives you a competitive advantage over the independent shops. And there are plenty of shops out there. Last week, I believe, we showed you several independent shops that are offering, some are offering free pickup, some are charging for the service, but they are out there and they're grabbing the customers any way they can. And when your customers are home and the first opportunity they get for someone to offer them that service, they just might take them up on it and you may lose your customers. So you be the person out there getting those customers back. Customer satisfaction, obviously, it's a better tool to satisfy your customers, give them what they want. And customer loyalty and retention keeps them coming back to you. It's another value added service that you as a dealer provide to your customers. And historically, I've been around the car business much of my life. Historically, automobile dealerships really do a poor job of selling the quote unquote value added services that you bring to the table. So when you look at your repair orders, for example, what are you listing there? Now might be a good time to add a new line item that says complimentary sanitizing and disinfecting. And if you don't already have a line item for the car wash that you provide, I'd suggest you add that complimentary car wash and show it as the value that it is. And then, you know, it's no charge. Same thing with your multi-point inspection, which many of you I'm sure already have that listed. And if you don't, get it on there. In fact, I just worked with a dealer a couple days ago, and they did not list the complimentary MPI on their repair order. Those are the things that you need to remind your customers that they can't get anywhere else. You know, they can see your coffee bar and your fancy customer waiting lounge and your free Wi-Fi. But those other things, you know, we're busy. We move on, we walk out. We don't think about the things that we truly appreciate from our new car dealer. So what else can you get to do to get those customers back in the door? So when we're talking about these stay-at-home customers, the 29% that say they're going to stay put, is it reasonable to say that we can go out there and proactively capture 10% more, 15% more, maybe 20% more? I don't know what the answer is for your market and your store. But you got to have one of those goals in mind to go out and proactively get those customers. If you don't change and pursue them, someone else will. And so one of the ways you can do that is to make outbound calls. And we talked about this in week 1 of the Fixed Ops Reboot. So making an outbound call, it's not too late to do this either. Just get someone dedicated on your staff to make a friendly, hey, we're here call, right? This is Ashley from Main Street Auto Group. We hope you and your family are doing well. We just want to let you know our service department is open. We have some revised hours. If you're in a high-risk group, we'd love to have you come and see our service department between 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. Monday through Wednesday. We do have free pickup and delivery as well, so you don't have to leave your home. And we've also taken steps to ensure your safety and well-being if you decide to come into the store. And we'll provide you a no contact-free service drive experience. So it looks like your vehicle is due for a recall. With our free pickup and delivery, I can get this recall completed for you today or tomorrow. Would you like us to schedule that for you? Something to that effect. Reach out to your customers, and you don't even have to pitch them on that recall. Maybe you just want to make that friendly call to touch base with them. So I'm going to turn this over to Bill Horgan. These are some things we've touched again in previous weeks. While each state is in a different phase, you got to think about what phase is your service department in. And when we talk about that, we're talking about really 4 phases anytime you transition through a challenging time. Are you in denial? Which I think we were all there maybe that first or second week that we started this process. You know, it's going to go away. We're not really sure the big impact. Before we were required to wear masks and things like that. And you kind of continued your work as usual. From the denial phase, then we kind of move to the resistance phase. You know, we get kind of in a slump. Maybe your employees were getting a little cranky, you know, not sure if they're going to have a job, waiting to find out if you're going to furlough anybody. They're focusing on their own personal impact. You're focusing on your own personal impact as well. And so productivity dips, right? And then from the resistance phase, you got to move through to that exploration phase. So you start seeking information, you start looking for answers. And that's when I really noticed a ramp up in these webinars, lots of resources being posted out there for dealers and managers to go to get information. What is something that we can grab onto and control and make happen here right now? So that's really where you should be at the very least right now, experimenting, taking some risks. What are some new processes you can implement, and generating new ideas? Don't limit yourself to maybe what your budget is telling you right now. Just think outside the box and figure out a way. You never know what you might be able to accomplish. You might be able to move some roles around within your service department, give them some different tasks to do, and then accept and change new roles. Focus on the future. Set goals for your team and yourself and your department, and come up with an action plan. What are you going to do? So I'm going to turn this over to Bill Horgan, and he's going to revisit some of the finer points that we think are important, going back to some of the basics in your service and parts operation to drive more sales and to get more traffic in the door. So it starts with the management team and your ability to lead these folks where you want them to go.
Is that showing up?
I don't see it yet. I can hear you though.
Come on. How's that?
Nope. I still see the Zoom screen.
Hang on just a second. I apologize. That better?
No, I think if you go in and tell it what screen you want to grab.
I thought I did that, and I will do it again.
Okay, there you go.
There. All right, I apologize. So we're going to talk about, we talked in the past about some leadership qualities. We're just going to review those again. And it says leadership, entities that perform one or more acts of leading, the ability to affect human behavior so as to accomplish a mission, influencing a group of people to move towards its goals, or setting or goal achievement. You know, one of the things you have to realize is that, you know, if you want to help people, one of the things we got to realize as managers, our job is to motivate them. And we got to figure out ways of motivating the people that are around us. I was in a Honda dealership a few months ago, and I was talking about the low productivity in the shop with the shop foreman and the service manager. And the shop foreman says to me, "I need these 5 technicians over here to be like these 4 technicians over here." And I remember saying to him, "Your job, the 4 technicians over here are self-motivated people. We don't have you in place to motivate those people. We have you in place to motivate the 5 technicians over here." And that's what you got to realize is our job is to motivate people. An army of sheep led by a lion is better than an army of lions led by a sheep. So what are some ways you could do that? Leaders have 2-way regularly scheduled meetings, and you should have a few different types of meetings. One is you should meet with your techs and your service advisors to try and make sure that, you're communicating, some of the new things that you want to change or some of the issues that you're hearing from your customers. And I would focus very hard. I'm a big believer in having tech meetings, and maybe you do it at lunch twice a month or something like that. But half of that tech meeting, you should have an advisor there and somebody from parts. You don't want to have them complaining about the parts department without someone from the parts department there to kind of, and you don't want to turn it into a session where everybody's screaming and yelling at each other, but you want it to be a positive thing. They take action, and you got to get feedback from your people, but then you got to take action on that feedback. And that's one of the things that a lot of managers do. Their people give them information, but they don't follow through on it. And you lose credibility when you do that. And it says you got to make your mind up quickly. You got to make decisions quickly. Andy Andrews, who's a motivational speaker, says leadership is basically two things. It's the ability to make your mind up quickly, and it's the inability to change it quickly. And I would tell you, years ago when I was being trained by a trainer / consultant that I hired to train me as a manager, he always said to me, you got to have certainty when you're training people. You make your mind up quickly, but you have to change it slowly. One of the things that we hear, and I'm sure Rod Davis and many of the other people that would tell you on our team when we go into stores would tell you that we hear things quite often like this. We put that in place, but it didn't work here. We tried that for a while, but it didn't work. And these are ideas that work just about anywhere. And one of the reasons it doesn't work is because we're asking people to change, and people don't want to change. So they want to push you and talk you into going back to the way you did it before. So customers, it says they do not see customers as an interruption to their workday, but see them as the reason for it. And so one of the most important things you could see, you can understand is I remember very clearly one time a service advisor coming up to me and saying, Mr. Smith's here. And I go, oh God, not Mr. Smith. And then I went, I shouldn't have said that to my employee. What am I telling him? That, that the customer wasn't important to me. And they treat employees with respect and value their opinion and observations. They inspect what they expect. You got to make sure, one of the key things in every training session for management, they always say you got to inspect what you expect. People aren't going to do it unless you're sitting there watching it, and you got to be an implementer. You got to make things happen. Don't sit on the sidelines and expect your people to make things happen. They need to see you and planning. They have a plan where they want to go, and they start moving in that direction, and they set goals and actively involve their employees in setting those goals. One of the most important things you have to realize is if you're going to hold people accountable, you basically hold people accountable for two things. One is a goal, the other is a process or a rule. And so if you don't have the goals in place and you don't have processes in place, you can't hold people accountable. So that's why it's so important you put those things in place, so it gives you the ability. It's the very basis of accountability. And they dress for their role. And how you dress is going to be different in all different parts of the country. So it says a manager's job description in one sentence, and it says it's to create a sense of urgency. And, one of the things you have to realize in a service department, we sell a product that is so different from many other products that are sold. We're selling time. And, if your used car manager doesn't sell that used car, he can put it back on the lot. I know he wants to sell it, but he can put it back on the lot and we can sell it again tomorrow. If the parts department doesn't sell that part, they can put it back on the shelf and we can sell it again tomorrow. But if your technicians are supposed to be 120% productive, that means they're working an 8-hour day and they're flagging 9.6. If they're going to be 120, we have 9.6 hours to sell. If we have 10 technicians, that means we get 96 hours to sell today. We have to have urgency in getting that done. And some of the ways to get that urgency is to split those hours up amongst your service advisors. You get 32, you get 32, and you get 32. I need you all to sell 32 hours. You have to create urgency. Some of the ways you create urgency is to constantly ask questions about the things that are important to you. How many upsells did you have today? How many menu sales did you have today? And not just once, not just twice, but all throughout the day. What did you find on that vehicle? How many hours have you sold so far today? Those are ways that you create urgency. And if you ask them every day, people start having answers for you. The first time you ask a question, they're not going to have an answer, most likely. The second time you ask a question, and the third time, and the fourth time, if they know it's going to come every day, they're going to have an answer for you. And therefore, you're creating urgency, and they're starting to see the need to, or how important that is to you. So what is a manager? A manager manages the following: people, products, and processes. People, products, and processes. And you got to keep that in mind when you're out there. And he also is a leader, and a leader leads by example. The task of the leader is to get his people from where they are to where they have not been. I love this other quote: leadership is the art of getting someone else to do something you want done because they want to do it. By Dwight D. Eisenhower. You also have to be a salesperson. You can't just walk out and say, this is what we're going to do. You got to sell people on why they need to do it, why they need to change, and what are the benefits to them, and what would be the benefits? Could they make more money? That's a benefit. Is it a more ethical way to treat your customers? Is it better for the dealership and better for the employees that work with them? Constantly focus on what are the benefits when you're putting a process in place to those people. And you need to be a coach. And a coach, you're coaching your people on how things are done in order to strengthen their skills and proficiency. One of the things we're going to talk about in a minute, so I don't want to belabor it now, but Kristen also mentioned it, is scripts. Scripts to me are important to everybody on this call because you want to teach your people how to say things. You know, years ago, as a service advisor in the first store I ever worked in, I had my service manager, and he was an excellent salesperson. And if I had a job but wasn't quite sure how to sell, I'd walk up to him and say, can you sell this job for me? I want to hear how you do it. And he'd put me on the phone extension, tell me to be quiet, and he would sell the job. And I remember thinking, man, he is so smooth. What was I doing? I was coaching, I was training, I was teaching, or I was being coached, being trained, and being taught. I remember when I became a service manager, I had a service advisor walk up to me, and he said the same thing. I said, go get on that phone over there. And I did it. And he got done. He walks up to me. He goes, man, you were so smooth. You sold that thing so easily. And, you know, that's the way we train people. You got to be a motivator. And, you know, you got to realize how important, especially in tough times like this, how you have to be, you got to be positive. You got to be enthusiastic. And you got to get everybody focused on going after those goals that we've all set. You know, I was walking in a store this week, and I had to wear those face masks, and I was thinking, man, this sucks. You know, it's so hot. It was, you know, I was sweating. My glasses are steaming up and everything. And then I didn't let everybody know that it sucked. I just said that to myself, and outwardly I said, well, it's good. We got to leave a good, you know, impression on our customers that we're worried about keeping them safe. You also need to be a mentor. And you must advise and teach their employees team building skills, working together, and of course you have to be a trainer. And you got to sell everybody on the importance of following those company policies and the value of training through role playing, processes, employee observations for compliance, and positive reinforcement for continuous improvement. Steve Jobs has a great quote. It says, you can't look at the competition and saying you're going to do it better. You have to look at the competition and say, you're going to do it differently. What are you going to do differently? That's why things like pickup and delivery, I know it doesn't make everybody on the call go, wow, this is a great idea. I think we're going to do this. But I guarantee you our business is going to be permanently changed because of 2020 and this virus that's coming through. It's going to be permanently changed. So what are you going to do differently to attract customers into your service department and keep them coming back? You got to remember that when you're selling service, you sell a product that's not tangible. People can't see what you do. They can't touch, taste, smell, and hear what you do. The only thing, they have to take your word for what you're doing it. So what our main goal is to build trust in our customers. So be committed to giving customers what they want. And so what are some of the things they want? Peace of mind, confidence in doing business with you. So that's where those plexiglass dividers, dealers have a higher level of comfort from the customer, not as rushed, more time to sell, and placing advisor stations outside, reviewing those MPIs outside. Again, a higher level of comfort from the customer. BDCs, appointment coordinators playing a bigger role, outbound calls. setting a pickup and delivery. So your BDCs trying to let the customers know, as Kristen said earlier, what are the things you're doing to change and to protect them, and exceeding customers' expectations by showing the care and concern, even when it may not seem necessary. Wiping down keys as you hand them back to them, wearing masks. I remember years ago as a service advisor, in my first store as ever an advisor, and I was next to an advisor, and he starts wiping off the steering wheel. The customer's standing right next to him. He wipes off the armrest, and I said, "Would the tech leave grease on that?" He goes, "No, I just do that for the impression." And his customers loved him. He had such great CSI. So another Cox Automotive Study, the #1 desire of customers, pickup and delivery. I think we went through this a little bit earlier, but ride share. Are you using Lyft and Uber? Your advisors and new used car sales reps, are they, gives them the ability. So you could send advisors to do it. You could send your new and used car sales reps to do it. It gives them the ability to build relationships and possibly sell more cars. Are you pre-writing repair orders so you're prepared when the customer gets there? And are you sending all the possible documents that you can electronically? MPI. You should have a maintenance menu that you could send electronically, whether it's a link or whatever. I'm going to tell you, there's been studies that show when customers have the ability to look at maintenance online and study it, that the hours per hour is much higher on a customer's car when they choose maintenance on their own. And are you selling over the phone via text with video? Sell at the customer's house? And do you have a service tracker like a pizza tracker? Customer gives the customer the status via an app. I'm going to tell you, there are some, I think Cox Automotive has some tools that gives you a service tracker, and it lets the customer know where you are in the process. There's a couple of programs out there that'll even let a customer in the waiting lounge know where they are in the queue, so they know when their vehicle is going to be completed. And of course, vehicle sanitizing and disinfecting service. What are you doing to get that done for your customers? So you're going to build value with your customers in new ways and rev up those service sales now. So selling to no contact customers, pickup and delivery customers, night drop, early bird customers. Those are different ways, letting your customers know what are the ways that we're going to be doing so there's no face-to-face opportunity. Are you having a different sales strategy? And are your advisors professionally trained to advise and sell over the phone? And this is really where it comes down to making sure that they have word tracks, that they know what to say. Just telling them that we're going to make sure you tell every customer that we're going to be disinfecting every vehicle is probably not the way to do it. You probably have to give them some form of a word track on what your expectation is of what they say. Now, you might think to yourself, I don't know exactly how to word that, but sit down with some of the best people in your dealership, maybe someone from sales who could help you from that, who's really smooth and a good talker. So what are the challenges of answering conference calls? Making an impression in a short amount of a very short time. Taking control of a conversation that was not initiated by you. And customers are prepared and have rehearsed what they want to say. You have to be ready for just about anything. And they also have rehearsed their objections to bringing it in. Again, you have to be ready for what they're coming in for, and listening to your customers and showing understanding. And if you don't, they're not going to be listening to you. So why do you need a script? I'm going to tell you, when your employees know what to say, they feel much more confident. And that's one of the things we've been told over and over again. I could tell you, when people walk in the door, or when people walk in for training and we're about to do our first training, one of the first things I say to people, I might have 30 service advisors in the room, and I'll say, raise your hand if you guys are real excited about me giving you scripts. And no hands in the rooms go up. And so I say to them, well, why do you think your management team, or maybe a training company like mine, would want you to have a script? And it's all about consistency, but it's also about building their confidence. I trained in New Jersey. I was training at a dealer group, and I was doing some workshops. And so I went around and I gave each advisor, I wanted them to build a feature benefit presentation on a different product. And so one young lady who was a service advisor for 10 years, I said, why don't you build a you build a word track on how to do a feature benefit presentation on a cabin air filter. And a few minutes later, she says to me, I can't do that. And I said, why not? And she says, I don't know what a cabin air filter does. A 10-year service advisor. How much confidence do you think she had selling cabin air filters? Not very much. You know, part of me blames her because she probably should have asked and figured that out. But it also goes to tell you, I ask service advisors all the time, why would a battery fail the Medtronic's tester, but it starts the car fine every single time? And they can't answer that question. And I'm not going to get into it now because of time, but you have to realize your advisors can't be hugely confident if they don't know the answer to those things. It allows you and your advisors to gain control of the conversation, and it prepares you for unpredictable calls and questions. These are why scripts and phone scripts are so important. Consistent process for all employees to follow. So everybody's giving your customer the same message, and consistency is one of the single most important things that's out there. And avoid quoting price by relying on a professional script, and it allows you to avoid diagnosing over the phone by relying on that script. And it gives that customer a consistent customer experience every time they call in. I tell this story, and it's a quick story. I go out to lunch a lot, and one of the places that we'll go to is Applebee's. And one of the things I order when I go to Applebee's is soup and salad. And I one time ordered the soup and salad, and I ordered chili for my soup. And a little while later, she comes out with only the salad, and there was no chili. And I remember I said, where's my chili? And she said, oh, we ran out. She says, but don't worry, they're opening another bag. And I remember saying to myself, I said to her, I go, I don't want the chili, I'll just eat the salad. She goes, oh, I probably shouldn't have said that. I said, probably not. And you know, it doesn't sound appetizing when someone tells you that your chili is coming out of a bag, and when you're thinking that it's homemade and made right there on the spot. But if you're Applebee's, what do you want? You want to make sure that that chili is consistent among all the Applebee's stores. And it increases your department's appointment to incoming call ratio. So why is a professional script? People are generally concerned about using scripts because they think they will sound like a robot, or they will not be able to use their own style or personality. Well, one of the things what we do is we give them an outline. We tell them this is the basis of what we want the script to sound like, but we'll give you some ability to change that. I always get a kick out of when we're doing the training. I'm usually about a third of the way through the first day. And when we get to this script and they say, I don't want to sound like a robot. So I said, let me change course for a second. How's the training going so far? And people usually say, oh, great, this is really good. I learned a lot so far. And I go, because it's all scripted. What do you think a PowerPoint presentation is? And I almost always start laughing because that's exactly what it is. I do this. Kevin Vaughn does this. Rod Davis does this. Many of our trainers in the field do this. We all do it a little bit different, but what's the purpose of a PowerPoint presentation? It controls the message. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to control the message to our customers. But however, it's important to realize that everyone scripts themselves without even knowing it. And when I say that same exact thing to service advisors all the time, I say, when you approach customers selling air filter, you don't do it different every time. You probably have a very similar way, and their head's usually not up and down like, you're right. And I say, all I'm asking you to do is change that script to make it sound a little bit different and hopefully a little bit more professional, and help those employees sitting next to you to give your customer the same answers. And so why not use a professional script designed with all the necessary objectives in mind to make you the more successful? Practice it enough so you don't sound robotic, and your personality will shine through naturally once you're comfortable and confident in what you're saying. So 3 factors in communication. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and I think this is really important. It says body language, tone of voice, and words. And when you look at the graph, one of the things, there's a couple of real important parts about this. We're not going to be dealing with as many people face to face. And when this isn't how people take in your message. And so 55% of the way someone takes in your message is in your body language. And so If you're going to be dealing with people over the phone now a lot more than we have in the past, and maybe not even see them, you have to realize that we just lost a large portion of the way people take in the message. The other way, 38%, is tone of voice, and then the words are only 7% of the way someone takes in the message. Your customer receives that, and obviously in those three ways. So what's the important part about this is we have to realize one of the most important parts is actually the words. I know it looks like body language and tone of voice, they are very important to your customer and how they take in that message, but you have to realize one other thing is as you know, as a service advisor, as a BDC rep, as appointment coordinator, the words are the things that affect the confidence in an employee. So an employee who knows what to say by using scripts, by saying things, becomes much more confident in their tone of voice. They become much more confident in their body language. But if they don't know what to say, like think about this. If every slide that popped up on here, I didn't know what was going to be there and I'd never practiced it before, how confident would my tone of voice be? How confident would my body language be? They probably wouldn't. That's why this is so important. While words are only 7% of your total impact when communicating with your customers, you have to understand the words are extremely important in building your employees' confidence. And when an employee doesn't know what to say, their lack of confidence will show up in their tone of voice and body language. Memorize your words by using scripts, and your confidence will follow. It also makes you more confident in the people that you work with. If I know that the service advisor next to me, if I know what he's going to say to the customers, I'm going to feel a lot more confident backing him up when he's not there. So tone of voice, 38%. It says people forget what you said. They will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And tone of voice is all about building or making people feel better. It conveys feeling and intent and can be used to lighten up a conversation or get down to business. And be careful to only convey positive feelings with your tone of voice. One of the other things we talked about earlier in these series is the importance of scheduling appointments. I was just at a dealership this week that was doing an excellent job of scheduling customers into the service drive. We've been training in the store for a while now, and they have a smooth flow of customers coming in, and that is critical. That the appointments are scheduled consistently in order to maximize technician productivity, but also the service advisor's productivity. So make certain there are enough vehicles to work on prior to the start of the workday. You know, I go in the store sometimes and the advisors and techs start at the same time. But when the advisors and techs start at the same time, the techs are standing around waiting for the advisors to get them work. That's not the way to optimize and maximize technician productivity. So the average technician to advisor ratio is typically 3 to 1. So that means each advisor would typically need 3 customers scheduled prior to the technician's arrival. And so remember that carryovers are a great way to maximize technician productivity. So our appointment always be signed to an advisor. I'm going to tell you, there's so much more accountability for you. There's so much more accountability for your advisors when they know that Mr. Jones is coming in, it's their customer. That's exactly how the system was this week when I was training in the store. And you could see the advisors would walk up and say, this one's mine, this one's mine. I know this customer. So they were all prepared and they knew ahead of time what maintenance needed to be done. It puts your customers first prior to the arrival. So the advisors are proactive, which is better time management for them. They know who's coming in and when. And it gives them time ahead of time to review the customer's history, which makes them sound so much more professional when they're dealing with the customers. And pre-write the repair order. And we talked about that a little bit earlier. And it gives you also that time to review the maintenance needs. And if you're prepared before the customer gets there and it doesn't look like you're reactionary and it looks like you're proactive, the customer is much more likely to buy maintenance from you. And it's a much more personal customer experience when they know the name of their advisor prior to their arrival. Kristen, do you want to have anything else?
Yeah, I can just talk. You've got this slide up on your PowerPoint, so if you just leave that up. If there's any questions, I don't see any in our chat box as of right now. So we will close it out. We want to impress on you more than anything else is wherever you get your training or your coaching for your team, just be sure to find that time to work with your team as you transition through this. Remember to over communicate with both your customers and your employees. And we are hearing great positive things all over the United States, in different states, as we go back to our dealerships. As I said earlier, we hope the same for your store, wherever you're located. If there's anything we can do for you or your team or your dealership by way of training or just a couple questions you have that you want answered, please seek us out. We're here as a resource for anything and everything regarding your service and parts operations, and we want the best for everyone. So with that, if you want to see the archived series of webinars, there's some really terrific content on service absorption, on technical awareness that we did early on. So go ahead to our YouTube channel at dealerprotraining.com. And Bill and I thank you again for your time today. I hope you have a terrific weekend. And again, don't hesitate to reach out. Take care.